Hello there. Welcome to our Strong Talks today. We're going to be speaking about exam stress and how that can impact not just our teens, but it can also impact on ourselves as parents. So Zana's going to be joining us, and we're going to be looking at nutritional ways and supplements that we can take that will help support the stresses on our body, our brain functions, sort of how to really help us focus and have a clearer mind for ourselves and also for our teens, as I say. So Zana's going to join us now. I'm just going to let her on. Here we go. Here we go. Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. So we're wanting
Always,
to...
always bring.
Always makes me out. Always makes me nervous, and then the pause. So we're conscious. You and I were talking last week about how sort of the brighter weather's coming along now, and summer feels like it's on its way, which is lovely and relaxing in many ways. But it also brings with it exams, and we know for our sort of teenagers that it can be quite a stressful time. It puts lots of pressure on us mentally, but also the physical toll it can take on the bodies. And also from a parent's point of view, as a parent myself, I understand you worry and you're not always in control of it. So we were going to talk today about nutritional advice and supplements that we can be taking ourselves, but also that our teens can be taking.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one of the most common questions I've always found over the years is, can my teenage son or can my teenage daughter take this? And that's exactly what we want to kind of have a look through and go through. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So shall we kick off with do you want to go into supplements first or nutrition?
We can go either. Both side. I mean,
So which of our supplements, say within Strong Nutrients, which ones would you highly recommend that our teens were taking? And then we can talk through the amounts that they can take and that sort of thing.
I mean, top of the list, I think, is the chill pill. I think it's the chill pill, because I have been asked, well, what about the magnesium and what about this? But for teenagers, I think the chill pill is really, really helpful. Now, it's just vitamin B5, which is lovely because there's so many things out there that help people relax. I need to be super clear when I say this. I'm not against herbs at all, but I'm more wary of herbs. Right. I love the fact that the likes of the chill pill is just a vitamin. That's what I really like. And it does help support the adrenal glands. It does help a person relax better. It helps them sleep better. It helps mood go up. It just helps them feel more normal, more calm, more themselves, which particularly coming to exam time becomes really helpful. And there's so many things out there that people can take to help them. I mean, oh my gosh, I know kids that were taking, and I didn't recommend this, just to be clear, that were taking melatonin to help sleep, which is the hormone that helps you sleep. And at that age, you shouldn't need anything like that, ideally. You should be able to keep it quite simple and do it through more nutrient-based supplements as opposed to hormonal-based ones, or so on and so forth. So for me, that really does come top of the list. It really does. And it covers both the sleep aspect and the generally feeling calmer aspect.
Right. Okay.
And it helps with mood, which can make a big difference, dare I say, with teenagers.
Yes. And how much should they take? So I think it's normally, is it up to 3 twice a day?
Yeah. For an adult, it's 3 twice a day. Now, for late teens, they're pretty much adults. In my experience, they will be okay with that. Younger teens, maybe no. They could maybe go for 2 twice a day. Chill pill is something, I'm not running out recommending everyone give this to young children, but it is something that younger children can take in much smaller doses again. So it's quite a safe supplement, obviously within reason. You've common sense with any supplement. But I would say in 13, 14-year-olds, maybe keep it to 4 day, 2 twice a day. But as you get it to 16, 17, 18, 3 twice a day would be fine. The worst that tends to happen is if it's too much, the body will flush it out. And if that's happening, cut it back. Best taken with food. All vitamins and minerals, as a rule, are best taken with food because then they absorb with it.
Yeah.
But it does work very well at night going to bed. It seems to help sort of almost bring the cortisol levels down, but it certainly helps with sleep, just allowing the person to sleep normally. Doesn't make you drowsy, super important.
Yes.
So it's great to take in the run up when the exam stress is beginning in terms of your studying and everything else. It can be taken just coming into the exam time too. You'll get benefit by taking it even just within a few days of the exams to keep the body calmer. But equally, it can be taken at night to help sleep.
And would you recommend that teens took it with magnesium rocks at night, or would they not need that as
I
well?
don't think they need it, genuinely. Now, I don't
Okay.
think it would do any harm. You can. I don't, in my experience, teenagers don't tend to lack magnesium as much as we seem to need it more, perhaps, as we get older.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. You certainly can. If there's magnesium in the house, giving a little bit of magnesium to a 17 or 18-year-old won't do any harm. They may or may not need it. I think the chill pill covers it.
Okay, perfect. So that really would help support the stress and the sort of the mood. What do you recommend for brain function
Oh,
and focus?
yes, actually, funnily enough, I say carefully, I don't want to confuse you, but the magnesium can help a little bit with the brain function because it helps with energy and the production of ATP, but it wouldn't be the main one.
Right.
The big one is the Antarctic krill. That really does seem to help. It's got the EPA, DHA, which you all know is really good. All fish oils now, just to be clear, are good for that. The Antarctic krill is just particularly good because of the astaxanthin. And that's that antioxidant that helps kind of carry the EPA, DHA into the brain, if you like. So the goal is to almost, okay, I'm using this analogy to soak the brain in that lovely EPA, DHA, particularly DHA.
Yeah.
And that seems to really help. So again, Antarctic krill is another one that's actually very good for mood.
Right.
But helpful certainly for brain functioning, circulation, all of that. So that can be very useful. And with that, even just 1 or 2 a day is plenty of either that or a good EPA, DHA fish oil. But they would be no harm. Now, they might be less immediate affecting as the chill pill. In other words, the chill pill, the advantage of it is you can just take that. That'll kick in within almost the same day, certainly with 2 to 3. Fish oils can have an immediate effect, but it's more of a build up into the tissues. So the body can.
Ah, that's good to know. Okay, so chill pill can affect quite quickly, but Antarctic krill
Yeah,
a little bit of time.
with a lot of those, the research you can get 6 weeks, 8 weeks to really kind of get the full. And I'm sure there's benefit almost immediately because the body's going to use it straight away. It's not going to just throw it away, but it sort of builds up.
Lovely. Okay, and what about obviously creatine's like one of our most popular selling products that we have, and would that be beneficial for students to take before exam?
I'm always saying this anytime I get asked about creatine. Creatine is, I just think, this fabulous product that 30 years ago it was only teenagers and 20-something-year-old boys that were taking it to help their stamina and endurance. And it would never have been considered in a conversation like this in a million years. It was considered, you've got the brains and the brawn. It was considered the brawn.
Yeah.
But actually, it does help create ATP. ATP, the body uses for energy, but so too does our brains. Now, do I think teenagers need it? If they're on low protein diets, low fish or meat diets, then I think it could help. The research shows it helps memory and recall. But particularly if there's a diet low in it, excuse me, so to be precise, a vegetarian or a vegan won't be getting in much creatine naturally through the food.
Yeah.
And if they're low in it, that could affect memory and recall.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I think it could be useful.
So it could be useful. And you mentioned protein. I guess we can move on slightly in terms of diet as well, but is it important for teenagers to have a boost of protein or consistently, increase their protein in the lead up to the exams?
That's a good question. Sorry, I'm coughing away here. Apologies.
Bless you, sorry.
I don't have a cold. I actually, I drank some just before I came on and it's got a bit in my throat. But protein is a different story. Listen, protein is essential to build up all the lean body mass. That includes neurotransmitters to the brain. That includes the nerves. It includes everything. So on a very low protein diet over time, that could potentially affect brain function, particularly for developing children and teenagers. And that doesn't mean you need to be on a mega high protein diet, but you don't want to be too low either.
Yeah.
Is very useful. Where the protein comes in on its own, and this is leading into the nutrition really side of things, is a lot of teenagers can be prone to eating more sugar or high carbohydrate ways of eating. And to be honest, for many, they seem to thrive on it. So I'm not going to say anything, quite frankly. However, it's not good for sustainable energy. It'll give a high and a low, which from a mental energy point of view can give a high and a low. It can affect mood. It can affect a number of things. And that's not very helpful when you've got the stress of exams coming on and you need to be able to focus for sustained length of time.
Yeah.
A higher protein, lower, now not low, but lower carbohydrate way of eating is more likely to work to sustain the energy and sustain the focus.
Right.
So that's where protein comes in on its own. And honestly, a lot of teenagers do need to eat more, particularly boys will often need to eat a lot more than they might later in life and earlier in life, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the protein can come in on its own, the likes of protein shakes or just protein foods. Now, I do apologize in advance for anyone with teenage sons. You know the expense of doing all of this, so I'm going to recommend it. You have to figure out how you're going to work in practicality in real life. Yeah. But the advantage of things like the protein shakes is it's a good way of sustainable energy for them. Yeah. So they come back from school, want to eat something, a protein shake can work superb then, as opposed to maybe going for bread or something else that's more high and a low.
Okay.
So it really does help from the sustainable side. And that's what you're kind of looking for at this time of year. You don't want the mood going up and down. You don't want the sense of stress going up and down. And the sugar and carbohydrate is a bit of a roller coaster ride that can lead to that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I guess when you're sort of studying for exams and you haven't got much time and you can't really think about lots of things, often kids would probably grab a bag of crisps or grab a chocolate bar or something, but actually having maybe protein balls you could make alongside a protein shake, those sorts of things would be much better for them, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're looking for quick and easy, as in something to grab, then it's brilliant because all it is pretty much clean protein and blend it with milk or anything like that. And that works beautifully. It really is handy. It really is brilliant. It's not saying, I mean, a bag of crisps isn't going to blow everything. A bit of chocolate here or there isn't going to blow everything. But grabbing chocolate on an empty stomach can give that energy boost that helps them focus. Yeah. But then the dip.
Yeah.
And you don't want the dips. So weirdly, if they had the chocolate alongside the protein shakes, we often talk about this for shake. It's helpful, but it'd be the same for this. Yeah. Because protein would slow down the sugar hit, so you wouldn't get the dip. You wouldn't get the same high and the same low.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what role does caffeine sort of play with stresses and, mood swings?
Yeah, I was smiling. I was just going to say, you tell me. If you've got, I mean, I'm Irish. We grew up with a cup of tea glued to our hands. I think that how much caffeine did I have as a child without even realizing? We weren't allowed coffee, but we did have tea. Yeah. There's a fair amount of caffeine getting in there. So it begs the question, how good or bad is it for us when we're teenagers, talking less about adults here?
Yeah.
I think you're going to stop most teenagers having some form of caffeine, be it tea, coffees, Cokes, Red Bulls, or any of the likes.
Yeah.
I would encourage two things. One, I would definitely encourage keeping it to a minimum where possible for the same reason. They'll get the lovely high from it that can help them focus beautifully, but then they can get the dip and it can make people more nervous over time. They may not realize it, but when you eat off it, they become a bit more themselves and a bit calmer. Yeah. And coming to exams or studying, the caffeine can increase. And the nerves are already increasing. The last thing you need is a stimulant that makes you more nervous. Yeah. So if the caffeine can be reduced, okay, if you can keep it out and get the same results, fantastic, but at least reduced. But interestingly, this is where the chill pill comes in. It helps support the adrenal gland. So whereas the caffeine's a little bit of a hit on the chill pill helps almost calm it and counteract it. And it makes the body that little bit calmer.
Okay. And if they were to have caffeine earlier in the day and try not to be having it too late at night?
Yeah. All of that will help without question, because at least then it won't interfere with sleep in the same way. Yeah. So that will definitely help. But quite frankly, 3 cups in the morning versus 2 cups in the morning, obviously 2 cups will be better and 1 cup will be better, kind of. So it has the benefits. I'm not flat out against it, because there's no question some people do find they can really concentrate that bit better with a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But I just think there's a tipping point, and when you cross that, just from the nervous reaction of it and the energy low you can get from it, it's not worth it. So just keep it minimal.
Yeah. And are there any other supplements that you think teenagers should be looking at sort of
This time,
during this time?
yes. One's worth considering. Girls in particular, it's worth looking at iron and iron levels.
Okay.
Again, if leaning towards being vegetarian or vegan, which can be the case, even if not, it's still quite frequent for teenage girls to get quite low in iron. And if the iron levels are low, honestly, you'll feel sleepy, brain foggy at any age, and just find it hard to concentrate.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if the only thing you being low in iron as a teenager at school could affect your whole future in terms of thinking how good you are intellectually, but actually it's got nothing to do with that. It might just be because you're low in iron.
Yeah.
Flip.
It's
It's such an
and is there any way of finding out without sort of blood
There,
testings?
you can definitely do it by blood tests. Usually, the quick and easy way to do it is if someone gets lightheaded, if they go from sitting to standing or lying down to standing quickly, if you get slightly lightheaded or dizzy, that's usually a sign of it. If there's dark rings under the eyes, that can be a sign of it. There's a few things that can indicate that the iron levels might be low, but the biggest one really is you kind of get up from a chair very quickly, or you're lying down getting up quickly, or you squat down, stand up quickly, and get slightly dizzy. That's usually a sign of it. Low iron will often leave you craving and craving sugary things and that kind of thing as well, funny enough. So it can hit in two fronts. So I would recommend just keeping an eye on that, either through nutrition. We all know red meat's a great source of it, eggs are a good source of it, greens are good, and supplements. And I would recommend going for either a nice mild iron supplement. You can get the ones that literally say mild iron. There are ones backed on, they're quite mild. Or my favorite, as I've often mentioned, is a brand called Educohealth that do one called Haemoglobin iron, which is an organic form. That's my personal favorite of the irons. But it's good to get it topped up. If you don't need iron, taking extra won't do you any good. There's no benefit to it. But if you're low in iron, it makes a big difference, which leads then to the B6s, the B12s, which you get in meat products as well, which can sometimes be low. So maybe just looking at a good all-round multivitamin with all of this in it. If and this goes for both of these goes for girls or guys that are vegan or vegetarian, but girls in particular, for obvious reasons, monthly periods don't help. And they can be particularly low. Definitely one to watch. Definitely ones to watch.
Okay. And then from a nutritional point of view, so instead of perhaps grabbing a chocolate bar or something quick and easy like that, are there other foods that are good to sort of help focus the brain?
There's foods that are very high in a thing called tryptophan, which is an amino acid which you get in a supplement form, by the way. It often comes under 5-HTP. You'll often see it as a supplement. Tryptophan is an amino acid. It's very good for building up one of the neurotransmitters to the brain. It helps you relax, quite frankly. And there's a list of foods that can be quite high in those. Nuts can be high in them. Things like turkey can be high. Bananas actually are great. So there are foods that actually have a natural relaxing effect. Equally, foods that are high in calcium have a calming effect, because calcium coats the lining of nerves. So that means like cheese, milk, that kind of thing. Dairy products can have a calming effect, if you like. So yogurt and banana would be great.
Definitely.
Well, yogurt, nuts, and a banana would work well. You're getting the protein, you're getting the calcium, you're getting the tryptophan. All of them can help the body calm a little. And people often talk about dark chocolate being good. I'm reluctant on dark chocolate just because of the caffeine content. So I feel when you're getting a hit on one side and a benefit on one side, you might be getting a slight negative on the other. So I'm inclined to be more cautious of going that route, particularly as there's enough going on. You don't want to kind of overstimulate. I mean, listen, a piece of dark chocolate is not going to be a big deal, but I would lean more into the kind of the calcium rich, tryptophan rich kind of foods that don't have the added stimulants kind of naturally occurring. Like you mentioned, keeping the protein with each meal will help two things. It'll help take the place of the sugars and carbohydrates. So you don't have to eliminate them. Now, I'm not recommending taking carbs out of a teenager's diet unless you're looking at extreme sort of medical or shape kind of game. For a normal student studying, please don't worry about that. But getting the protein in would mean that you're not on a carb overload, which could then lead you just to get highs and lows and sleepy and so on and so forth. So with each meal, get some protein in with it. Breakfasts, try to avoid a pure sugar breakfast, i.e. just, you know, a sweet cereal is not going to cut it. That could make you sleepy and sort of agitated a few hours later. If you're going to do that, if you really are in love with the cereal, 1 or 2 teaspoons of the protein actually through the milk might actually slow down that sugar hit. So you can actually, you don't have to completely let it, put the protein shake through it. Or you could go with porridge would work well, eggs and toast would work well, get protein in there. And then kind of through the day do the same. Lunch, okay, sandwiches may be the easiest, but try and get some good protein in alongside it, or at least within between the bread, and try and get the bread as low glycemic as you can. So not the really fast white bread, but the more holistic kind of rye breads, I think, if they
exactly. And we were when we were talking about it, you were sort of saying that it's really important to think about their diet now, so that there aren't any drastic changes sort of happening in the lead up to the exam. So they're in a nice routine and they sort of, their body has adjusted.
It's really helpful that the thing that often happens is the day of the exam you get told to, you must have this for
really
your
good breakfast.
Well, and if the poor individual has never had breakfast before, has a quick grab and go breakfast, and suddenly the day of the exam is expected to eat a big a proper big protein rich breakfast, the poor body deal with that now on top of the exam. So I wouldn't make moves right before an exam. I would try and in advance, even a couple of weeks, but get the body into its own rhythm. So there's no real big changes on the day of the exam. Equally, there can be this feeling of, I mean, I remember this, some of this I'm talking about experience when I was a student, not just a teenager, but a student. And you're thinking of, okay, maybe I do just have a coffee on the day of the exam so my mind is sharper. If you're not used to it, don't do it. And even more stressed necessarily. So try not to make the changes on the day of the exam or just a day or two before. Try and introduce them sooner, particularly the more health directed ones, so that by the time it's a lovely steady rhythm.
And you were saying as well, almost not to be afraid of having nerves, because it can work well for you.
Yes, we're not going into the psychology of things too much here, but I do have a small background in this. That yes, nerves are useful because we're always told, and I used to always be told, you know, everything to help keep you calm coming into the exam so you're not stressed. A little bit of stress quite literally does focus the mind. So a small amount is useful. Fight or flight is where your body obviously is releasing hormones such as cortisol to make the body more prepared. So the brain sharpens, the blood flow goes in a different direction, the eyesight sharpens, you're thinking differently. It's why, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone out there, but certainly I can speak for myself. I was brilliant at last minute studying. I mean, extraordinarily good, terrible at doing it in advance. But it was that almost fight or flight would kick in. So suddenly everything's sharpened. It's like your awareness goes up. And now look at these pages and they make sense and you're learning them. So I'm not recommending, the last minute cramming. That's more about the bit of the nerves. You're more focused. There's more attention on it. The retention is going to be higher at that point. Everything's going to be sharp, but there's less distractions going on in your head. It's designed to make you prepared to deal with the scenario in front of you to the best of your ability. The small amount of nerves are good. It doesn't mean relaxation techniques aren't useful. Of course they are. Of course they are. But it's not to be afraid of the nerves. Almost embrace them and use them to your advantage.
It's a fine balance, isn't it? But I think it is, understanding not to be scared of them, because that only makes it worse anyway.
You can, and sometimes think, well, I'll be too nervous too. Funny enough, they help you. They can actually through the exam weird. So in that balance, don't be afraid of them. Use them.
So then, if we're thinking about it from a parent's point of view, which is how I often think about it, is we're saying it's good to have some nerves but when you're a mum or a dad and you don't actually have an exam to take, but you have all the nerves and all the excitement that goes with it, what's good for a parent to be thinking about at that time? Because you're going on the journey with your children
Yes.
essentially, but you're just not in
It,
control of
but
the
I'm
doing.
smiling. Yeah, your child can go off and study. I suspect you should just go to the gym.
Yeah. Well, yes, because it's either that or reaching for a glass of wine all the
Uh,
time.
but yes, and again, I mean, genuinely, I mean this. This is not somewhere I can actually tell someone what they really should be doing, because each of you out there are dealing with kids.
Yeah.
Honestly, respect, and I mean that wholeheartedly, just to be very clear. I would suggest, though, because this is kind of a bit of common sense. If you're too nervous, your kids are going to pick up on that. If they're young kids, that will make them nervous. If they're older kids, it will probably just get them more agitated, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would probably suggest, I'm half joking when I say go to the gym, but actually, why not? Because you're going into a form of fight or flight. You may as well use it up rather than suppress it with alcohol. Fight or flight, if you think about the concept, is fighting. So similar to boxing or flight, running, cycling, anything like that.
Yeah.
So go for a run, go for a cycle, or go to the gym and just train it out, get everything to calm down. You'll be more focused and calmer for it. So you'll actually be more benefit to your. You're not going to, it's not like you're going to ignore them because of it. You'll probably be more helpful because of it.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm only half joking when I say go to the gym, but I think it actually can be quite useful. It can be quite.
Yeah.
Use the hormones. Make it work for you too.
Yes.
Because fight or flight is
Yes.
putting into
I find if I'm ever stressed or a bit overwhelmed, if I do some exercise, it certainly makes my mood and my tolerance levels better around the children. So,
well, you're using up all the stress hormones for something that's beneficial. It kind of gives you,
definitely. And the supplement wise, mums and dads, chill pill as well, magnesium at night.
Chill pill, great. Magnesium, I do think we tend to need more as we get older. We've mentioned this before, I won't go into too much, but you know, if ever you get muscle cramps, it's a sign of magnesium being too low, particularly perimenopausal, menopausal. But this goes for men, andropause as well. If the sleep patterns are interrupted, that's often hormonally based. Magnesium can help with that, helps with the regulation of melatonin. The reason I'm sort of less inclined to say teenagers need it is most of those hormones are working very well for teenagers. More a slot as we get a bit older that they tend to dip, and so to speak. So they need all the support they can get, if you like, nutritionally. Magnesium can definitely help. Chill pill can definitely help. Really can. It's there to support the adrenals. If you're under stress, the adrenals are working more than they might ordinarily be, and it really helps support them. And most people I know tend to be coffee drinkers, and that's always a gentle punch in the adrenals. So that helps sort of counteract that too. So without question, those will definitely help. And I do think the protein shakes are super useful. Now, I'm not saying as parents this will be happening. It does tend to happen to teenagers when they're under stress. When most people are under stress, you crave sugary things. And the protein can jump in there and take the place for that to stop going into a pattern of the sugar. And make no mistake, for most people, the glass of wine is sugar for so many. I'm going to have a few questions come in here, Lou. I'm just thinking we should
I was actually going to say I've got the iron tablets that you recommended. Someone asked earlier. So these, I don't know if you can read it backwards, but these are the iron tablets. So they're Educohealth and they're the Haemoglobin iron. But I will put a link to them anyway on our stories for people. I know someone asked that earlier.
I particularly like them. I do particularly like them. But I mean, you can get, there's lots of iron supplements out there. Most of them though aren't organic. They're more the ferrous sulfate. But I do hear a lot of good results from particularly the milder form. So it's not knocking them.
I really liked these when I took these for a period, and I found them really beneficial. So and they didn't have any sort of side effects with it. So it was the main one for me. And then someone has asked, what about teen girls getting bad period pains and cramps? 1 or 2 weeks will surely fall within the exam period.
Super question. If you haven't tried the various supplements, then you've got the evening primrose oil. Evening primrose oil can be helpful, and the magnesium can be helpful. Exercise can be surprisingly helpful. Now, this isn't going to go for everyone out there, so it's not a blanket statement, but in so many cases, it's often the girls that get the worst cramps organically tend to do the least exercise. Now, it doesn't mean they're lazy. They're probably doing plenty of other things, but exercise can be super helpful. They're not crazy amounts, but that can definitely help. So I would lean towards the magnesium of the evening primrose oil can often cover it. If exercise isn't getting in there and it's something you can add in easily enough regularly, then that obviously just doing exercise during it isn't helpful, but more in the weeks prior to the period. Stabilizing things, that will help. And then possibly, now I say this cautiously, and I'm more saying this off the cuff as we're talking, because I wasn't really considering that question. It might be helpful to keep the dairy fats and products down a little bit. Sometimes that can occur if you're more estrogen dominant. So the dairy fats, now just to be clear, I do eat dairy fat, as in just to be very clear. So I'm not against it as a blanket kind of thing. But in this instance, the dairy fats might be encouraging the estrogen, which could be making it slightly worse. So to more stay clear of those, that would mean leaning slightly away from the cheese or full fat dairy products. Now, they have benefits in other areas, so I'm cautiously saying that. But just in the case of this, where the period cramps are quite high, that might be helpful too.
And just a thought that I had, I often used to get stress headaches. Is there anything that's particularly good for those? Because obviously in the lead up, when you're like, oh,
well,
what
magnesium?
I was going to say.
Pill. Yeah, if it's happening more late 30s onwards, then magnesium seems to cover that. But if it's just generally all through life, then that can often just be the chill pill alone might be enough for that. It's just to keep everything calmer. It depends what's kicking off the stress headache. For some people, it's no more complicated than clenching your teeth and jaw.
Yes.
And then up here is getting stressed too. So it's all just a physical tension. So that's why anything that helps the whole body relax, kind of get the neck relaxed, the jaw relaxed, and all of that area, that will do it. And for others, it could be more hormonally driven. But either way, the magnesium and the chill pill help bring the cortisol levels down, help calm.
Perfect. Lovely. Anything else that you would like to add? I
think we've covered most. The one thing actually, just to reflect back, I think is worth saying, just in case anybody can catch this one, because I think this is quite useful. When it comes to outcomes for exams, this is just a very brief catch. And kind of focusing on outcomes and visualizing, because so many people now are into visualization, seeing echoes, and it's even been taught a lot in schools and so on and so forth. But the best time, and from my understanding and research, is when you do that when your mind is very clear. Hence, a lot of people might do relaxation and visualize, or hypnosis, and then they get you to visualize. But believe it or not, when you're under stress and nervous, you're giving more attention than you would ordinarily. So that's a very, very good time, weirdly, to quickly focus on the outcome. Now, obviously, don't bother, because you'll just probably talk yourself out of it. But just being slightly nervous is a good time. So if you do have teenagers or children coming up to something and they're slightly nervous, that I more mean slightly nervous, not completely. And that can be a good time to start talking about the end result, either in terms of the outcome they're going to get for this exam, or just talk to them about a time that they did do really well in an exam, and it gets their mind wrapped around the fact they can do this, they have done this, they've got this. And again, more into the unconscious, and they'll drive more from that. That'll make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an overwhelming time for all the family when things like that happen. So yes, if anyone has any other questions though, or would like any advice or support on it, then just drop us a DM and we'll pick it up. And next week we're going to be looking at the high fat diet. So obviously you've previously written a book that we would like to just delve into a little bit and just understand a bit more about it. So hopefully everyone can join us next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Zana. Nice to see you, and thanks everyone for joining. Bye.